The sweet smell of cedar and sawdust used to be my heaven, a scent that promised creation and purpose, but for years it only smelled like my failure. I always believed that if you worked hard enough, if you were honest in your craft, the world would reward you. I learned the hard way that the world doesn't care about your honesty, but it will absolutely hold you to your signature on a dotted line. My story starts not with a monster, but with a hero, or at least, the man I thought was my hero. His name was Julian, a master carpenter whose hands, it was said, could coax stories out of wood. His workshop was the stuff of local legend, a place where aspiring craftsmen like me dreamed of setting foot. I was young, barely 20, with more passion than skill, and I saw Julian as the only path to becoming the artist I wanted to be. He was my idol, and I was just another piece of raw lumber waiting to be shaped. The day Julian offered me an apprenticeship, it felt like the sun had decided to shine only on me. He told me he saw a rare spark in my work, a flicker of the same fire that drove him. He said he wanted to not just teach me, but to partner with me to build a legacy together. He laid out documents on his massive oak desk, talking about expansions and shared ventures. He called it an investment in our future. I was so blinded by the honor, so desperate for his approval, that I signed everything he put in front of me, co-signing on loans and credit lines without reading a single word of the fine print. I was officially his partner and unofficially his property. My life became a blur of 16-hour days. I slept on a cot in a dusty back room, the constant hum of the workshop machinery my only lullaby. Julian's mentorship was a cruel dance of praise and poison. He would celebrate a perfect dovetail joint one moment and then smash the entire piece to splinters the next, claiming I lacked vision. He cut me off from my family, my friends, telling me they were distractions, that true artistry required total sacrifice. Letters would come, official-looking envelopes from banks, but he'd snatch them from the mailbox, patting me on the shoulder and saying he was handling the boring business stuff so I could focus on my art. I grew thin, my hands raw, my spirit sanded down to almost nothing. Then one day, after nearly 3 years, he told me I didn't have what it takes. He said I was a disappointment. He threw a few $100 bills on the floor and told me to get out. I left with nothing but the clothes on my back and a hollowness so profound I could feel the wind whistling through it. Years passed. I scraped my life back together, one agonizing day at a time, working a dead-end warehouse job. I found love, a woman who saw the man I could be, not the wreck I was. We bought a tiny house. For the first time, I felt the ground beneath my feet again, and that's when the certified letter arrived. It was a notice of foreclosure. The bank was coming for my home because of a defaulted business loan for an amount that made my vision swim. It was all there in black and white, my name, my signature, a debt large enough to swallow my world whole. I went to a lawyer who told me it was hopeless. I had signed the papers. It was a civil matter, my word against a celebrated community icon. There was no justice for me in a courtroom. That night, holding the foreclosure notice, I felt that old hollowness return, but this time something else was inside it rage. I saw an article online that Julian was being honored at the state's most prestigious art gallery, unveiling a new collection he called his masterwork. And I knew what I had to do. For 6 weeks, I didn't sleep. I poured every cent we had, every ounce of my being, into a single piece of furniture, a writer's desk. I used the techniques he had taught me, but with a precision and soul he had never possessed. Each joint was perfect, each inlay a testament to my pain and my survival. The night of the gala, I loaded the desk into a friend's truck and drove to the city. I walked into that gallery, a ghost from Julian's past. He was on stage, basking in applause, talking about authenticity and the soul of the craftsman. As he spoke, I quietly set up my desk in an empty corner. At first, no one noticed. Then an influential art critic, a woman known for her brutal honesty, walked over. She ran her hand over my desk, her eyes widening. Then she walked over to Julian's prize piece, a massive cabinet, and looked closer. She turned to the crowd, her voice cutting through the applause. She praised my desk for its masterful, painstaking handiwork. Then she pointed to Julian's cabinet and announced that it was a fraud, pointing out the telltale marks of factory machinery, the cheap, mass-produced hardware hidden beneath a veneer of craftsmanship. The room fell silent. Julian's face went pale, a mask of disbelief and horror. The crowd began to murmur, moving closer to his work, suddenly seeing the shortcuts, the fakery, the lie they had all bought into. His patrons, the source of his wealth and fame, looked at him with disgust. His career didn't just die, it was executed right there on the showroom floor. The story of his fraud became a legend far bigger than his art ever was. My desk, however, sold that night to a collector who had torn up his check to Julian. The money wasn't enough to clear the whole debt, but it was a start. More commissions followed. people wanted to own a piece of the truth. I am still paying off the loans, but now I do it as a man who owns his own name, whose work is celebrated for the very soul Julian tried to extinguish. He thought his ultimate victory was my signature on a piece of paper, but he was wrong. My real revenge wasn't in that gallery. It was in my pocket. Before I left his workshop all those years ago, I had found one of those bank letters he had tried to hide. Tucked inside was a shipping manifest from an overseas import company. It detailed the delivery of dozens of pre-assembled furniture kits to his master workshop. I had given a copy of it to the critic before the show. He built his empire on lies, and I tore it down with his own receipt.